Hello, welcome to Eduphoria for Teachers. I'm your host, Robert Rocha. In this video segment, we're going to talk about how to change or create your class schedule in Eduphoria. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is if you're a new teacher to Eduphoria, it's going to prompt you to create that schedule. And unfortunately, the screens that I'm going to show you today are not going to match up exactly the same, but the process that we're going to be doing is going to be the same way. So let's go look at Eduphoria and start looking at how we're going to create that schedule. Now, this is a good time to point out about the calendar. Remember, I mentioned in a previous video that the calendar is the main navigation tool. Now, if you notice here, I have some bolded dates. The second's bolded and the fourth date is bolded. Any date that's bolded within the calendar tells Eduphoria that you visited that day. You may not have created any information on it or changed anything, but you visited that day. And when you visit that day, Eduphoria thinks that's going to be your lesson plan for that particular day. And even though there's nothing on it, it's going to force and see that. And the changes that you make today may not show or appear. And so it may be kind of hard to explain that. So I'm going to demonstrate that purpose to you as we go through this process. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, today is September 14th, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Monday the 8th. And notice now, when I click back to the 4th, that the 8th is bolded. So that means I visited that date. I didn't make any changes at all on that day at all. So I'm going to come back to that in just a few minutes to kind of show you the quirkiness of that calendar. So let's go ahead and go to change our schedule or create our schedule. If I look below the calendar, all the way to the very bottom, where it's going to say change my settings, I'm going to click on change my settings. And then I have another options of either share my planner or my schedules. I'm going to click on my schedules. Once I do that, there's my original schedule that I had. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to click on that and just remove it. I have the option to edit, and you can do this. And again, the screens will be the same, but I'm going to go ahead and just start with a whole brand new schedule. So I'm going to remove that schedule. And now it says here, create a schedule. So this is going to be just like the first time you entered Eduphoria. So I'm going to call this one Lesson Planner. And every time I want to navigate in Eduphoria, it's always going to be on the very bottom right of these screens. So I'm going to click on Next. And now it says here, add entries to my schedule. The entries are going to be your courses that you're going to use. And so I'm going to add my courses by saying add an entry. So I'm going to click on add an entry. And it's going to ask me, by default, for the majority, 99% of the classes you're going to use with VPISD are going to be a course of learning standards. So I'm going to leave that as the default setting. Click on Next. And now it's going to ask me what grade level am I teaching, what area. So I used to be a second grade teacher, so I'm going to click on elementary. I'm going to choose second grade. And I'm going to choose my English, Spanish Language Arts Reading Grade 2 as my first course. Once I have that highlighted, I go to the bottom right. I click on Next. And it tells me my entry title. I can change that if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave it as default, but I have the option of changing that. I'm going to click on Next. And there it is. Now, one other screen I was not able to show you is if you're a teacher on your team's roster, it'll actually associate your courses and teams with Eduphoria. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you select that class that you have in teams with that. And it's something you'll be displayed in, and you can't miss that particular section. Unfortunately, I'm not a teacher, so I don't get to see, I don't get to see those same windows as you do. But once I'm there, if I go back to my Eduphoria screen, I have my first class. And so now I'm going to add my next class. So I go back to add an entry. Course of Learning Standards next. And this time I already know I'm in second grade, so I'm going to go to Mathematics. Next. I can change that if I like, but I'm going to keep it the same. Next. And there is my course schedules. I'm going to keep repeating that until I get all of my courses within. Of course, for the sake of our video, we're not going to go and do all that. But now, once I'm done adding my courses, I go to the very bottom right again. I say Next. And it says change my schedule. and I'm happy with the way everything looks and feels. I'm going to click on Next again. And this is kind of a weird quirkiness of Eduphoria. It says that you're done. It says Forethought has all the information it needs from you. You may now begin planning. That's not necessarily true. It just gets a lot of teachers in troubles because they see that you're done and they click on my lesson planner and nothing's there because they have to hit Begin using Forethought on the very bottom right of my screen. That's the Save button. So make sure you hit Begin using Forethought, and then once you're there, it says it takes you back to your screen and you're going to see your schedule. Now, here's that quirkiness I just told you about earlier. Notice I'm on the 4th, and I'm at English 2nd grade, I added a math 2nd grade. And although I see that here, notice as I scroll down, I see all these other lesson plans, health and things. It's like, geez, I didn't add those courses. How come it's not being displayed? Well, what I have to do with Eduphoria, it remembers my old plans. It supersedes my changes. So in order to fix that, I have to go back to Eduphoria and delete today's plans in order to force the changes in Eduphoria. And that's going to be the biggest heartache that teachers have using this program. So how do I do that? When I go back to my screen, notice in the middle section, in the upper left-hand corner, I have a piece of paper that has a plus sign on it with a drop-down menu. When I click on that, there it goes. I see my current schedule: English, Spanish language arts, mathematics, and of course some other things that are there by default, but I don't see my health. So what I want to do is I'm going to delete today's plans, and I say OK. And now, voila, there it is. I see the changes I just created today. I no longer see my health things. So from today on, the rest of the school year, my schedule is going to be correct. That's the theory. But if I go back to the 8th on my calendar, watch what happens. I see the old schedule still being listed. That's because Eduphoria is saying, hey, you went to this calendar date, you did something there, you clicked on it, you must have done something. I'm going to keep those changes. So I have to, again, go back to the top of my screen, delete today's plans using that icon, and that's going to force the new schedule. And now my new schedule is there. So that's pretty much all there is to setting up and creating a class schedule and kind of the quirkiness that's with the navigation calendar that we are using. We hope you enjoyed today's show and we look forward to other ones, and have a good day.